You cannot change somebody else.
How dare you!
How much for his?
But you can change yourself if you want to. We always start with you. If you want to develop excellent social skills or people skills, if you like, you have to have self-awareness. People are interesting. Most people are curious about why we do it the way we do it and how people are wired. Maybe the human brain is the most complicated organ on the planet. Men have a higher proclivity for violence than women have. Men are a little bit more task-oriented. Women are a little bit more relation-oriented. It's about when the frontal lobe closes. What that means cognitively is that now you can make decisions and understand the consequences. That happens at the age of 23, 24 when it comes to young men. It happens around 18, 19 when it comes to young women.
No, just on that point, it's interesting, especially the humor point. I feel like Ollie, my co-host here, is one of those guys who constantly thinks he's really funny, but in actuality he's maybe not so funny. But anyway, I've got your book here, Surrounded by Idiots, which I actually found at the airport 2 days ago. Hit book. I see it everywhere on the bookshelves, so congrats there, first of all. Just to maybe come back for those listeners who aren't so familiar with the color types, could you just maybe quickly give us a recap of what red, yellow, green, and blue translate to, just as an overview, so that for the rest of the interview, if you refer to those colors, it's a little bit clear what you're referring to.
Absolutely. The red type is the extrovert, task-oriented person, dominant, fast-forward thinker, very fast-paced, a bit. Some people consider them a bit aggressive, but they have a really strong drive. Let's say, very impatient. They don't like details. They just want to push the accelerator all the time. Very straightforward. Very keen on straightforward language. Also, they never hide what they think. If you ask what they think about a certain topic, they will tell you. The other extroverted profile is the yellow one. They are extroverted but people-oriented, which means these are the smiley ones, the happy ones, the social ones. Because some people confuse extroversion with socializing people. That's not the same thing. But the yellows are the social types. They are, mingling and they are, they know everybody. They talk to everybody. They smile all the time when the sun is shining, even though it's raining. They will say, yeah, but the sun is always shining somewhere. You have to stay on the positive side. That's the yellow type. Very, very impulsive, but also very inspiring, very creative. Thinking outside the box. You must be kidding. So there is a box. How do I get in the box? That's their kind of challenge. And then you have the other relation-oriented person, which is the green ones. But they are also introvert. So they are very friendly, very calm, very caring, sharing, good listeners. They actually hear what you say. They don't like conflicts. They are not very keen on changes, especially fast changes. They don't like that. But they are very loyal, very, very good team workers, team players. They are here for the team. And the last factor is the blue factor, which is task-oriented and introvert. And here you have yourself, let's say, an accountant or an engineer, very precise, very exact, to the point, facts, details, proof. How do you know that? Which book do you read? What about the author? What kind of education does he have? All those questions, ask questions all the time. But you will never, you can't accuse them of, being sloppy or not considered about the deal, because quality is everything. So they pay attention to all the tiny nitty-gritty. So they can be a bit slow sometimes, but very, very precise. And again, as I mentioned before, we all have the capacity of all the colors within us, but usually, statistically speaking, two colors are usually what is the most common, and it could be any combination. It could be yellow and green or blue or whatever. So you have mostly two of them in you. There are people with mostly one color. 5% of the population, statistically speaking, shows usually one color. So we have them, but that's not very usual. So that's the foundation.
What I immediately notice when you talk about these things is that I often form mental pictures of such people in my head, or maybe characters of them. For example, Ollie, I can immediately realize that he's not a blue. And I think that's part of what makes it so entertaining. And And on that note, it leads me to the question why you think your books have been such a hit, bestseller in Sweden and all around the world. Why do you think it's so appealing to people?
If I had a recipe, I would write another book and do the same thing all over again. No, but seriously, I think it's about, firstly, it's about the topic in itself. Humans are interesting, right? People are interesting. Most people are curious about why we do it the way we do it, and how people are wired. And usually it's interesting to read about yourself. Most people are I read somewhere 80% of all our thoughts is about ourselves. And let's say that's true. You can learn about you when reading this book, and that's something that people like. But I have also, of course, I have sort of wrapped it in something that is quite easygoing. I dare to use some humor, some irony, and people tend to find that entertaining. I think basically it's about explaining something quite complicated in an easy way. I usually argue you don't have to have 5 years psychology studies to understand human behavior. It doesn't hurt you if you had 5 years psychology studies, but you don't need those to understand daily behaviors and to understand yourself and to understand, your closest neighbor or your spouse or your parents or anything. If you're interested, you can read a lot of books, and of course the title helps a little bit. It's some people consider it catchy. Some people say that's
Very catchy.
kind of rude to say that people are idiots, but we're all the idiots in somebody's story.
It was a bit funny because I was at the airport with the book and I put it next to me, and the person next to me looked over and just saw my book, surrounded by idiots. I mean, what must they have thought that I thought of them?
I've seen interesting clips on social media wandering around, 25, 30 million views because people are sitting in a restaurant reading the book. That's kind of funny. I like that. I'm happy.
Well, obviously, you begin the book saying, actually, people aren't really so much idiots. It's actually just different communication styles or different ways of looking at the world, different ways of being task oriented. And so you're very careful not to kind of put a value judgment on any one kind of way of communicating or any one kind of way of looking at things. But isn't it true to a certain extent that there can be superior ways of doing things? For example, the fact that Blue is very careful and considered is a positive, and the fact that another person might be able to have some efficiency is a positive. So could you expand on your view of this a bit? Is this just to kind of not insult your readers, or is this kind of a more general philosophical view of personality,
Am I trying to balance on a sharp edge here? I think, I mean, what could I say? I mean, diversity is a good thing when it comes to putting teams together. If everybody's the same way in a team, you're going to get a lot of people, patting each other on the shoulder saying, "Oh, you're so right. I totally agree with you." But it's not going to be very interesting, right? And you can't solve complicated problems with the same way of thinking about this or that. So you need to have a spread when it comes to personalities and drivers and a lot of things actually. But when it comes to calling people idiots, I mean, everybody recognizes the situation where you sit around the table, you have a discussion, there's something going on, you try to follow the agenda, you take good notes, and you run your arguments through everybody, and you see, they're shaking their heads, and when you leave the meeting, the only thing they can think of is what's wrong with these people. What's going on here? What seems to be the problem here? And they think the same about you. But usually it is about communication. I mean, you can look at behaviors as a gearbox. Sometimes second gear is perfect, when you're sort of going really slow downtown or something. But you can't use it on the motorway. You can't go 100 kilometers an hour on second gear. You need a fifth gear or sixth gear, or how many gears are there? I'm not big on cars. But but you need the whole toolbox, but you can't use all the tools. You can't use a hammer all the time in any situation. But some people actually do that. If you only have a hammer, all problems going to look like a nail, and that's not a good solution. That's therefore I would urge people to have use more imagination. I mean, if I tell people, people are different, you realize that. Yeah, I know. But but I'm right and they're wrong, and that's the end of that. You need to use your imagination. You need to have a broader perspective. And intellectually, everybody knows this. But at the heat of the moment, I don't have time to analyze everyone in the room. I just do whatever I usually do. And that's why you end up in a conflict. Because when you end up in a conflict, it could be about bad routines. It could be about a stupid agenda. But I would say 90% is about bad communication. People just don't pay attention. But then again, the question that you had there, Ollie, is all behaviors good all the time? No, of course not. Very unpopular opinion, but no. If you are looking for an engineer, if you are looking for an accountant, if you are looking for someone to figure out how to reach Mars, you need blue behavior. You need someone who can work on the problem for 10 years. If you need someone to build new relationships, to entertain people, it's good if they have some yellow in them. Doesn't necessarily have to be all yellow, but if you have that factor that comes natural for someone, it's going to be very helpful. If you need someone to take very unpopular decisions and make themselves, let's say, well, not caring about people's opinions about them, red behavior will help. That's why you have a lot of the higher up in any hierarchy you reach, the more red you will see because they have sharper elbows. Are they better leaders? Sometimes they are, sometimes they are not. But you can't use all the same behavior in every situation. That's, I mean, when I was really young, like, well, I don't know, 12 or 15 or something, somewhere there, I wanted to be a basketball player. I couldn't cope because I was too short. Then I wanted to be a Formula One driver. Too tall. Didn't fit into the cabin. I mean, life has treated me very unfairly. So I had to find an occupation where my height didn't matter. So I write books, and give lectures, keynotes, and so on. So I travel the world. Nobody cares how tall I am. And that's the same way for everybody. If you are born with certain, certain personality traits, certain strengths, and certain weaknesses, sometimes we just have to cope with the situation and do the best. But your mother's lied. You cannot be anything. That is actually not true. I'm very sorry to break it to you, but it's not true. You can be a lot more than you might think, but you can't be anything. Nobody can be good at anything. I don't believe in that at all.
Do you want to frolic freely at the beach, hairless both upstairs and downstairs? Tired of being left bloody, stumbling and alone because of a bad razor? Then you know what to do. Get yourself a Manscaped. With the new Beard and Balls bundle, you can stay fresh all over. Use the discount code LOW for 20% off now.
Hey guys, hope you enjoyed that clip from our interview with Thomas Erikson, the author of Surrounded by Idiots. If you'd like to check out the full interview, you can click right here. Please like and subscribe and drop a comment with your thoughts down below to keep supporting the channel. Thanks for watching and see you next time.